It's the inaugural record release from Discograffiti. Metal Machine Musac is a slanted tribute to Lou Reed's divisive 1975 double LP Metal Machine music. Lester Bangs called it the greatest album ever made, but no matter how it hits you, it's always been the ultimate music freak secret handshake. My ambient reimagining features 4 16-minute 1-second tracks, just like the original, and each one was created by a top-shelf indie rock visionary. Lou Barlow from Dinosaur Jr. and Sebadoh, Corey Hansen from Wand, W. Cullen Hart from the Olivia Tremor Control, and Mark Robinson from Unrest. That's right, not a slouch in the bunch, unlike 99% of the compilations you've ever begrudgingly purchased for the one and only band on it you just had to hear. Metal Machine Musac will not be available on streaming. The digital version is finally available for purchase, and the vinyl will be shipped this summer. Pre-orders for the LPs are available now, but they're going fast. They're being produced in a very limited edition run of 300 numbered 180-gram metallic silver double LP gatefold copies, only 100 of which can be ordered online. These copies will be numbered from 1 to 100, and they're first come, first served. To order either the digital or the vinyl, just head over to patreon.com/discograffiti/shop. Again, that's patreon.com/discograffiti/shop. Don't miss out on Metal Machine Musac, the ambient experience designed to make Brian Eno run screaming.
My kids hate Morrissey. I think they hate the fact that I am such a fan, so they had to kind of, on purpose, go against him.
Right, because you don't just love him, he means something to you.
Yeah, and for some reason, they have to rebel against that.
Right. You know, they got you where it hurts.
They got me where it hurts.
Welcome to Discograffiti, the music obsessives podcast that gives freaks like you and me the chance to connect with a brotherhood obsessed with rating the entire discography of every single artist and band that ever mattered. I'm your host, David-Gebroe, and with 3 to 4 episodes each week, you're going to gain a comprehensive knowledge of an act's history and output in the time it takes to listen to one album. Each new guest swings a hard left into an area you either had no idea you needed to know about or know all about and can't believe you're not alone out there. I support a wife and a 5-year-old son with Discograffiti as my sole source of income, so if you love the show and this episode, please Venmo me a tip at David-Gebroe. That's Gebroe. My guess is you probably stuff $1 into a tip jar when you buy a muffin. Please then, gauge the worth of this podcast side by side with simply being handed a muffin. My family and I thank you. And in this episode, we'll be turning our spray cans on the Smiths, along with our special guest, Michael Imperioli. The man may be an actor, and a legendary one at that, but behind closed doors, he's just a ravenously insatiable music nerd, same as you and I. In part 2 of this special doubleheader, here's just a few of the things Michael and I discuss about one of his favorite bands, the Smiths. In-depth discussions of The Queen is Dead, Louder Than Bombs, and Strangeways, Here We Come, Michael's favorite few Morrissey solo songs, and sections in the Patreon Ultimate Cut detailing the vitriol-fueled end of the band, all 4 members post-Smith's musical endeavors, and their travails in court as they battled it out for royalties. If you're a Smiths superfan like me, you'll want to turn this free version off right now and opt for the ultimate major cut of this episode on our Patreon page, which features plenty of essential material, including overviews of entire releases that we had to cut for time. And you can find it in our Patreon shop for mere pennies at patreon.com/discograffiti/shop. Or just subscribe for access to the complete versions of all our shows. Longer cuts are on the Lieutenant tier, and our longest ultimate cuts, they're on the Major tier. Even if you're on the fence, just head over there because it's finally free to become a basic member. Coming up, we've got Tom Morello rating the MC5, Robert Schneider rating the Strawberry Alarm Clock, and a massive, many-guested launch into the Beach Boys' entire catalog. So don't miss out. Open up your listening app right now and subscribe. And away we go then! Okay, 1986, The Queen is Dead. In its 2013 list, the New Musical Express named The Queen is Dead as the greatest album of all time.
You know, again, you can't divorce it from the time when it came out. You know, like by then they had built up such a devoted fan base, you know, that this album was so highly anticipated after Mita's murder and everything that came before it. And the package of it, you know, back then we were, you know, buying vinyl, obviously, and the cover was just so beautiful. And it just, everything made sense about that. Big Mouth was the first single off the record. That came out first, in the US at least. I remember hearing that first, and it was just very powerful.
And I gotta tell you, I think that's toward the bottom end of my favorite songs on the record. But this is an embarrassment of riches. This record is stupidly good. So, you know, to point to one over another, although if I had to look at one song that perfectly sums up what the Smiths are, if I was to play one song to somebody who'd never heard them before, it would be There Is a Light That Never Goes Out.
That's interesting. I don't know if it would be that one for me. What would it be for me? One song. I love, The Queen is Dead, I think, is a really, he's been playing that on his recent tour, you know, solo.
You play a lot of the Smith songs on his solos?
No, not a lot, but he's been playing The Queen is Dead recently, which, you know, whenever he plays Smith tunes, the fans go like insane. I remember he did a residency on Broadway, I think 2019, right? And I went to the opening night. We were online outside, the fan, you know, everybody was like, he played Girl Afraid in Toronto, and they were all freaking out because he had never played that before, like solo. And everybody was like, okay, he played Girl Afraid. Everyone was very excited and didn't know what was going to happen. But yeah, it's a great way to open the album, I think, with the title.
Oh, it's intense. And also, you're a big Lou fan. I mean, Johnny, at this point, was listening to a very heavy diet of Velvet Underground, a lot of Detroit Garage, a lot of Stooges, and that influence getting into their music spurns on a lot of greatness, because if left unchecked, without that propulsive underpinning, their music can get, like the first album, just very rainy and drizzly and navel-gazing in the best possible way. But if you light a match under that, it gets intense. And I think that's what happens here for a lot of the record.
Yeah.
Although, of course, by track 2, it kind of shifts into a different gear, and we're in music hall put-down pop territory with Frankly Mr. Shankly. I've always loved this song, especially the instrumental section that separates the verses. Just a classic tune, and also reputed to have been addressed to Jeff Travis, head of the Smiths record label Rough Trade, but Morrissey denies it, and it was apparently an attempt to recreate the vibe of Sandy Shaw's song Puppet on a String, but Morris says it didn't quite work out that way, which in all the best examples of putting anything through a sausage grinder, that's how it works. Linda McCartney was asked to play piano on this song, but declined, and a first take with a trumpet on it was scrapped. The version that was originally intended to be included on The Queen is Dead was ruined by a glitch on the tape, and so the song was actually re-recorded with John Porter in a different studio.
I Know It's Over is one of my favorite Smith songs.
What a great song.
His vocal performance on that is really beautiful.
Johnny Marr once described witnessing Morrissey laying the vocal down as one of the highlights of his life.
Yeah.
Cemetery Gates is just a complete and utter masterpiece, and the origin story of this thing is so brutally incredible. Anyone ever experiencing writer's block will just cower before the concept of this thing hits you in the face. It came about when Johnny Marr was on a train, and he recalls, I was thinking, if you're so great, first thing in the morning, sit down and write a great song. And he started with Cemetery Gates. And then in a little tale that reminds me of a Beatles story, Johnny was skeptical at first of using the song. He thought that the guitar part wasn't interesting enough to be developed into a full song. But Morrissey really loved Johnny's performance of the music and convinced him it was worthy of being fleshed out. And that just reminds me of The Movement You Make Is on Your Shoulder, the tale of McCartney not liking the line that he wrote for Hey Jude and Lennon telling him that that's what made the song. Just something like that is kind of a peek behind the curtain at how a great collaboration works. You know, these two guys clicking in ways that are preternatural and beyond the bounds of human understanding as far as the nuts and bolts of a real one for the ages collaboration works.
Yeah, I agree.
To me, if I had to pick, you know, usually I wait to the end to flip my 3 favorite albums, but this really is, if I had to pick their magnum opus, for me, it would be this one by such a sliver that it really is super, super close. Any day of the week, it could be any of the records. But at the end of the day, this is the one I think that most aptly communicates what they're about.
Yeah, the variations of the songs kind of really give a very complete picture of who they were, without a doubt. And the directness of some of the politics mixed in with all the personal themes of alienation and heartbreak and all those things together gives a real snapshot of who they were.
And I don't know if you know this, but Morrissey named The Boy with the Thorn in His Side as his favorite Smith song ever.
Really?
Yeah. There's nothing on here that I don't love. The thing that would come closest, I guess, might be Some Girls Are Bigger Than Others, but only because it's not quite a major statement as much as the rest of the songs are. But it acts so perfectly as an outro that its actual placement on the record makes it crucial.
Yeah, I feel similarly to that one as I do Barbarism on Meat is Murder.
So that one is going to be 5 for me. It's going to be 5 for me too. Okay, good. 1987, Louder Than Bombs. This, again, is a compilation record. I bought it on cassette back in 1987. I remember the smell. Remember the tapes? They had the translucent ones with a sort of like gray band around the middle. And there was a particular smell that those tapes had. I'm sure it was a chemical that could fry your insides, but it's one of my favorite. I liked it better than New Car Smell.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, this is an important one. London, I thought, was something that really stood out on this record. For me, that was always a really big one, as was Shakespeare's Sister.
That's a great.
I read an interview where Morrissey really thought Shakespeare's Sister was going to be a huge hit and was kind of surprised that it wasn't. I guess they released it as a single. I don't know when, what year, but had big expectations for it, for that song in particular.
That's interesting that would be the one that he would tips on. I like the really almost hysterically funny depressed songs. Unlovable's always been, you know, the email I sent you the other day where the subject heading was, I wear black on the outside because black is how I feel on the inside. That's like the ultimate Morrissey line. I love when he gets that sad that it's almost funny. Half a Person, I could listen to an hour of that. I love Half a Person.
Very good. Yeah, and Rubber Ring and Asleep, both on this record, which were two favorites of mine. He's done Rubber Ring solo and Asleep. A Rubber Ring's a really great song about music being your savior and not turning your back on it. And, you know, often when I think about Morrissey, that song always comes, don't forget, you know, the songs that save your life, you know what I mean? And in a way, I'll always be indebted that way.
Yes, you're older now and you're a clever swine, but they were the only ones who ever stood by you.
True.
So who are your best friends musically then? Is Hatful, is it really your favorite album of all time? Because I read it.
I mean, it was that day I felt it.
Yeah.
You know, it's one of them, without a doubt. You know, I'm a big, obviously, Lou Reed fan.
You know about my Metal Machine Musac compilation?
Yes. Is that out?
Yeah. Do you want me to send it to you?
Sure.
Mark Robinson did a 16-minute piece for that.
Very cool.
The only thing, if I had to nitpick one thing about Louder Than Bombs, it's that side 3 has a bunch of songs that don't do it for me right in a row.
Oscillate Wildly.
Golden Lights. Yeah, exactly. But again, it's nitpicking because then we're back with side 4, which is one of the greatest album sides they ever put together. I don't even care that it's a compilation. Right in a row, you got Hand in Glove, Stretch Out and Wait, Please, 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 This Night's Open My Eyes, Unlovable, and Asleep. That's ridiculous.
Yes.
It really is.
Very powerful.
To me, that more than makes up for it. And I love the sequencing of Asleep at the very end. Reminds me, again with a double album, but reminds me of the placement of Good Night at the end of the White Album.
Right.
So this one I'll give 4 2/3 stars to.
1 2/3. It's very generous.
I'm sure Morrissey's relieved.
Yes.
This one you'll give 4 2/3?
Yeah.
All right, 1987, Strangeways, Here We Come. which the title, Morrissey has stated, really it's me throwing both arms to the skies and yelling, whatever next. Johnny has said that he's learned to love the title. It was a bit overstating things somewhat, a little bit obvious, but it's okay. But
Strangeways is a prison or a mental hospital? It's a prison, I believe.
For whatever it's worth, both Morrissey and Johnny Marr have said that this album is the band's best. Also, Mike Joyce, the drummer, thinks it's their best.
Maybe they feel like they reached their, like they fulfilled their promise or where they were going, their direction. Notorious Strangeways prison, now called HM Prison, His Majesty's Prison in Manchester. Yeah, it's a prison.
Well, they probably felt like they were in a prison, I suppose.
They were going to prison. Yeah, here we come.
What had to have been appealing, this phase for them is, they were determined to avoid the jingle jangle thing. Mm-hmm. And they were becoming obsessed conceptually with the Beatles' White Album and venturing farther out from the formula. And this was supposed to be an homage to early records by the Walker Brothers. So there was synthesized saxophone, string arrangements, drum machines, and then the final two songs, actually, that were recorded by the band, recorded in May 87 to provide B-sides for the lead single, which was Girlfriend in a Coma. The very last two Smith songs were Work is a four-letter word and I Keep Mine Hidden. But between the recording of this record in March 87 and when it was released in September, Johnny left the band. So when the album came out, they had already broken up.
They had already broken up.
Yeah.
My favorite song on that record is Paint a Vulgar Picture. There's a demo, I don't know if you've heard it. There's a demo of that song. I think I heard it on YouTube or something that I like even better. I think might be a little bit different lyrically. I don't know, but the vocal performance I like better on the demo. It's really, really beautiful. It's a great song to begin with, but the demo version, if you get a chance, listen to it. It's really, really great.
I love
the vocal performance is a little bit different. I think it's an earlier take than what they used on the album, but there's something very poignant about the vocal performance on that because it's a song of such unrequited love and admiration and respect towards someone. His expression of the sentiment in that song, which is so specific, is really crystal clear and so targeted and right on the money. It's about something so specific, yet he just nails what it's about so clearly. It's very heartbreaking, that song. The fact that the band was broken up by the time the album came out, not to say that the band became the subject of that song at all, but you can't really separate it.
It's got to be rough. I mean, amazing, but also so rough to be in a position like the Smiths, more for Johnny Marr, I think, than for Morrissey, because he just kept being Morrissey. I don't think there was even a hiccup. But Johnny Marr, I think, lived with the albatross of this band around his neck for the rest of his life.
100%.
And when you've done what a lot of people, the rest of the world is telling you is your best work, by the time you're in your early 20s, where the fuck do you go for the rest of your life?
No, it's very hard. I mean, I think Johnny Marr is one of the greatest guitar players in rock history, without a doubt, and one of the most influential and important. But like you're saying, it's like I can't name you a Johnny Marr song after post. I really can't. I don't really listen or look for them much, but, I know a lot of Morrissey post-Smith songs, solo songs. I've seen many Morrissey shows.
Am I correct in assuming that Suede Head is the best solo song he ever did?
Hi, I'm Dave-Gebroe. I threw my career as a licensed hearing instrument specialist in the trash, sold my house, and moved to the East Coast with my wife and 4-year-old son in order to focus on making the ultimate podcast for music obsessives thrive. Now I need your help. Although Discograffiti is rated in the top 2% of all podcasts globally, the economics of this thing are tricky. Becoming a member of Discograffiti's Patreon gives you access to over 100 more exclusive episodes. And moving forward now every Sunday for only $5 a month as a private first class, you get our new weekly show by and for Discograffiti's Patreon family, the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast. As a lieutenant, you get an ad-free, substantially elongated director's cut of every episode. And you'll be getting the shows a few days earlier than the general populace, which is designed to make you feel even more special than you already are. So when you become a major, you'll be getting access to the ultimate director's cuts of all our sprawling, super deep dive episodes. As far as I'm concerned, these super cuts have absolutely everything that was meant to be heard. Plus, you get yours before the lieutenants get theirs. But that ain't it. You also get all our other series, like Discograffiti's Top 10, our Buried Treasure Show, Rock Cousteau, our Slag Off Show, Queasy Listening, and exclusive limited series like The Private Press with Paul Major. And if you've got no financial worries to speak of, keep in mind that some of the higher Patreon tiers allow you to actually advertise on the show, choose the bands we cover, or even some of the guests we get. For the price of a cup of coffee a week, you can ensure my family's fed, build a music library that'll be the envy of your block, and connect to a thriving community of music maniacs all at the same time. Don't risk feeling badly about yourself by not giving. Patreon.com/Discograffiti. Once again, that's Patreon.com/Discograffiti. Am I correct in assuming that Suede Head is the best solo song you ever did?
My favorites are Speedway. I also like Life is a Pigsty. I think that's one of his best songs. On Ringleader of the Tormentors, Tony Visconti produced that album.
Is that the one where he's with the machine gun on the cover?
No, that's You Are the Quarry. That's a really good one, too.
Yeah.
Vauxhall and I is a really great album. Speedway closes that album. Life is a Pigsty. It's kind of an epic song, and it's really very potent and a really great one. Those are my two favorite Morrissey solo. But Every Day is Like Sunday, that's pretty classic.
You know, listening to the Smiths is a very kind of isolated experience. There's bands that you listen, like Funkadelic is a band you listen to with a bunch of people around. When I think about listening to the Smiths, I don't think of a group of people. So I'm just curious, I know you have a family. Do you ever put them on when, you know, your family's around, or is it just you sitting there listening by yourself experience?
My kids hate Morrissey. I think they hate the fact that I am such a fan, so they had to kind of, on purpose, go against him.
Right, because you don't just love him, he means something to you.
Yeah, and for some reason, they have to rebel against that.
Right. You know, they got you where it hurts.
They got me where it hurts, yeah, exactly.
Back to Strangeways, I love how it kicks off with a song with no guitar on it. A Rush and a Push and The Land Is Ours is one of my favorites that they ever did.
Really great song.
And that first side, it's a showcase. I mean, you have Death of a Disco Dancer. Girlfriend in a Coma is one of the great disparities of lyric to music. One of the best examples that they've ever given in their prowess of being able to pull that off. Stop Me If You Think You've Heard This One Before. One of their very best alcohol deception treatises, especially that first side, is insane. And then a beautiful final song of a career is I Won't Share You.
Yeah.
And it seems like it's very poignantly placed at the end of a career to have that song. What a statement.
Yes, a big statement and a proper ending to the last album of, without a doubt, one of the most important rock bands ever.
I give that record 4.5 stars.
4.5. So which one was 5? Was Queen is Dead?
It was Queen is Dead, yeah.
Your favorite. I think that might be... I mean, well, like Hatful of Hollow has a very important place, but as far as just looking at it from a more critical eye...
No, it should be you. It should be you. It should be subjective, I think.
Yeah, those two I would give 5 to. Queen is Dead and Hatful. Both would get 5 for me.
And then...
very different albums, if you think about it, right? Completely different stylistically, just totally almost like from two different bands in a weird way.
Totally. You know, just as far as an overview and shape of their arc, there's just not that much arc to speak of here. Because like we talked about earlier, they arrived with a clear conception of who they were. And by the time they dissolved, the building blocks of their material hadn't really changed, with the subtle addition of a few other instruments to their sound to beef up their arpeggiated chiming guitar parts. But they were who they were, and their sense of self as a combined unit was so steadfast that there wasn't anything along the way that tripped up their sense of purpose. So as far as great albums go, depending on the day, I could literally choose any of them.
I agree.
It's odd for me that I would say that every single album by a band is great, but I also am steadfast in hewing to the concept that there are always a small handful of what I perceive as clunkers or skippers, but they never ever diminish from the standing or the quality of the work as a whole.
Yeah, I agree. And I'll add just another thing about the aesthetic of their albums, the singles and the LPs. You know, Morrissey's very particular aesthetic, almost like film stills. That was a big part of the communication to the fans. There was something about his care and attention to detail and attention to kind of a consistency of aesthetic that I think was very important and really set the tone for a lot of other artists after that.
So the bands that came after that, who quite obviously followed in their stead, you know, Belle and Sebastian's the easiest, most facile, surface level comparison I can make. But then there's, I don't know if you know the Clientele.
Mm-mm.
Great band. I think you'd love them. They have that hushed, you know, rainy day, overcast feel to it as well. Is there an instant appeal to you of those kinds of bands as well?
I love Belle and Sebastian. I think they're great. I think they're really wonderful. And, you know, there's some influence there, but they're their own thing totally too, you know. I mean, Lazy Line Painter is one of my favorite rock tunes. I think it's just so good.
Those EPs are just insane.
They're great. Great band. Yeah, I love them.
Yeah, they're one of my favorites. I mean, now I feel like they're in a different phase where they're just, and I don't mean this in a negative way, but they're just making great songs. Before they were making great songs that were part of records that were unified statements. But, you know, that's not necessarily how a career works.
It's also different. The way music is released and distributed and listened to is very different than when the Smiths were releasing albums. You know, the idea of an album, it's become very different. It seems like the industry is much more interested in songs than they are into albums. You know, in the 80s, it was still very much coming off of the 60s and the Stones and the Beatles and bands that, you know, Zeppelin, that had albums that were these towering monuments of music. And that went into the punks and post-punk of like the Smiths and bands like Echo and Bunnymen and U2. But it seems like now it's just release whatever, whenever, as much as you can and when you can. It's a different climate, I think.
It is.
Yeah, the idea of an album being this complete little, you know, that's why I brought up the packaging and the look of the album, why it was a whole thing.
Well, same with REM. They were worlds that you could step into and actually seemingly exist in.
Exactly.
Same with the Velvet Underground, because each of those records is not a record. They're a world that are almost geographic entities that you could step into and exist in. Velvet Underground and Nico is located way over there, way far away from White Light, White Heat, which is very far away from Loaded. So, you know, there's a magic to that. And also with Belle and Sebastian, that idea of, you know, if you like this band, it's like a full-time job to pick up all the scraps that they're throwing all over the place. Releases with 3 songs, 2 songs, 10 songs. That seems to be gone as well. But I would say my top 3 albums of the Smiths, number 3 is Meat is Murder. 2 is Louder Than Bombs. 1 is Queen is Dead. And my least favorite album, which is crazy because they don't have a bad album, but it's still great, is their first one, the self-titled.
It is a great one. I would say, Queen is Dead, Hat Full of Hollow, Meat is Murder. Those would be my top 3.
That's a good top 3. Talk to me about what you're doing now. Please plug away. I know you got the play.
The play runs till June 23rd. It's been sold out. Every night is sold out since day one. A lot of young people coming to see this 150-year-old play that's as relevant and timely as any other thing that's out right now. So that's been really exciting. My band Zopa has a new album that's going to come out later this year. It's our second album. We've released an EP and an LP, and this is our second LP album.
What are your plans with Zopa?
To release the album and, you know, play shows and record some more. We have a new video that's going to be released. It'll be the second single we had a single from this album come out last year, but this will be the second one.
Do you foresee a possible time ever where the aesthetic challenges and possibilities of music actually wind up scratching all your itches and you hang up the acting gloves?
I think eventually I'll hang up everything. I'm 58 years old, so at some point I'm going to hang up everything and just go meditate in a cave somewhere or something. I don't know.
Aren't you too excited by cultural artifacts to be able to completely renounce?
Yes and no. Yes and no. I am and I'm not. So I don't know what's going to happen.
Is it mantra-based when you meditate?
Sometimes. Not always. Sometimes. I don't know. I mean, I love playing with the band. I like writing music. We had a practice yesterday and we hadn't played together for quite a while because the play was really difficult for me to get any footing to do anything else. But we only have a few weeks left. And we have a couple of labels that are finally interested in releasing the record, which took a while to find somebody who wanted to put it out.
That's great. Who were you with the first one, the first release?
Well, it was an independent release, streaming. We did it ourselves, and then Mount Crushmore made the vinyl and sold the vinyl, a New Jersey label. Also the EP, Tondo. Tondo were the first recordings we ever made back in 2008, I think. The album La Dolce Vita was recorded in 2012. Not released till 2021, though.
Wow.
For a number of reasons that I won't go into. But.
Oh, those sound like exciting reasons now that I'd like to find out all about.
Yeah, we should have a separate talk on Zopa one day.
I'd love to do that. Seriously, let's definitely do that, okay?
Well, with the new album.
When are you planning to put that out?
I'll know soon. I'm not sure.
Okay. Without a doubt, once you know, let me know and let's plan a...
Okay. It would be good to do a collaboration post. Make a post that I can collaborate. You know how to do that?
Yeah, of course I do. Of course.
Do that with me. That's the best thing for me.
Okay. Yeah, that's perfect. Right. You're invited anytime, and I will send you Metal Machine Musac after this as well. I'd love to get your take on that.
Thanks, David.
Mike, thank you so much, Michael.
Yeah.
All right, that about does it. If you enjoyed that episode, please keep in mind that this is entirely how I support my wife and 5-year-old son. So don't risk feeling badly about yourself by not giving. Venmo me a tip at David-Gebroe, Gebroe. And stay tuned, because next week we've got Chris Cohen, who just released an incredible new record, talking about his Deerhoof years and his first 2 solo records. Okay, here's the week up ahead. This Sunday, our weekly show within a show, the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound podcast, drops for our Patreon's private tier. These are real people with talent and a burning fire deep inside, just like you and I. Then come Monday, the early release ad-free ultimate cut of the Chris Cohen episode rolls out for our major tier. It's the show as it was truly intended to be heard, with all the essentials left intact. And then on Wednesday, the Lieutenant cut of the Chris Cohen episode's released. And then come Friday, all the rest of you penny pinchers get to join in on the action. A heartfelt Discograffiti thanks goes out to my beautiful wife and son, Jen and Mason, Michael Imperioli, Rudy Fishman, Becky Boyd, my incredibly loyal fans, and especially the entire Patreon community, the Soldiers of Sound. I love every last one of you, and this show would not exist without you, my friends. Speaking of friends, it's high time for some new ones. They're in our Facebook group, Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound. That's the best way to find out what's coming up on the show, but there's a hell of a lot more. You get recaps of the day in music history, the ability to pitch questions to guests, polls that put you in the driver's seat on guest and band decisions, and access to a thriving creative hub if you're looking for a collaborator. So make sure you don't miss out. You can find the link to the Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound Facebook page right there in the show notes. And if you don't mess with the Zuck, no sweat. Just email me at info@discograffiti.com and I'll keep you in the loop. So now that it's done and you want more, another way to dive even deeper into the wonderful world of indie pop is to leap headfirst into my interview with Kula Shaker about the albums that shaped them. That's episode 139. The 4-part Mark Robinson series, that's episodes 128, 130, 135, and 136. The 3-part Will Cullen Hart Olivia Tremor Control series, that's episodes 131, 132, and 133. Vashti Bunyan rating her entire catalog, that's episodes 103 and 104. An interview with Foxygen's Jonathan Rado, that's episode 75. Rado rates Rundgren, that's episodes 37 and 40. Unquestionably the greatest Lou Barlow interview of all time, which is episode 62. Lou rates the Zombies, episodes 59 and 60. Anthony Fantano rates the Velvet Underground, that's episodes 32 and 33. Pitchfork contributor Jen Pelly rates the Raincoats, episode 15, and Cocteau Twins, episode 3. And of course, be sure to mark your calendars, because next Friday, August 2nd, we're coming at you with Chris Cohen. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss it. And so, from now till then, don't let our youth go to waste, lads and ladies. It's Discograffiti!